All right, let's jump right in. We hear this phrase all the time, right? Be data-driven. But what does that actually, mean when the rubber meets the road? Today, we're going to figure out what it really takes to make smart calls with data by exploring two worlds that seem completely separate. But you'll see, they're not.
So let me start with a question that I admit sounds like the setup for a really weird joke. What on earth do Ethiopian universities and your online shopping cart have in common? I know, it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
Well, the answer gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today. See, both of these things show us the two essential halves of making good decisions with data. Think of it like you're building a house. You've got to pour a super strong foundation first. Only then can you start wiring up the fancy smart home gadgets and executing your grand plan. You just can't skip that first step.
So, let's talk about that foundation. For our first case study, we're going to look at a really interesting study about what happens when universities in Ethiopia try to build these data-driven systems from the ground up.
The whole idea was to figure out what was stopping them from using data to help students succeed. But what the researchers found was pretty eye-opening. Before they could even think about analyzing student data, they realized the universities were hitting these massive, fundamental roadblocks just trying to get the basics in place.
Now, your first guess might be, oh, the problem must be technology, right? Not enough computers, bad internet. But nope. What the study uncovered is way more profound, and honestly, it's a lesson that applies to just about any organization, anywhere.
Okay, just take a second to look at this list. It is absolutely fascinating. These are the top 10 roadblocks the experts pointed to. And what's sitting at number 1? Lack of DDM policy. And right behind it, organizational culture and lack of DDM culture. The biggest problems had literally nothing to do with the actual tech. It was all about the human stuff, the rules, the habits, the way people think.
And this chart really drives the point home. Look at the numbers. A whopping 84% of the experts agreed that the biggest barrier was a simple lack of policy. And the culture issues are right there with it. So the lesson here is huge. You can buy all the fanciest software in the world, but if the people and the policies aren't in place, it's all just collecting dust.
And this quote from the study just says it all, doesn't it? The researchers were clear. The real fight is organizational. It's about getting the human systems right, the rules, getting leaders on board, and building a culture where data is actually a part of the conversation. That is the foundation.
Okay, so we've talked about pouring the concrete and putting up the frame of the house. Now let's imagine we're jumping into a world where that foundation is already rock solid. What kind of cool stuff can you build on top of it?
Let's switch gears and enter the super fast-paced world of e-commerce. In this world, having a data foundation is just a given. The question isn't, can we get the data? It's, how do we use these very specific numbers to make million-dollar decisions? This is where the execution happens.
So first up, we have ROAS, that's return on ad spend. This one's the most basic. It just asks, for every single dollar I put into an ad, how many dollars of sales did I get back right away? It's a quick and dirty snapshot, you know?
All right, next is CAC, or Customer Acquisition Cost. This one's a little more focused. Instead of looking at all revenue, it asks a very specific question. How much did we have to pay, on average, to get one totally new customer to make a purchase? Super simple math. If you spend $100 and get 10 new people, your CAC is $10. It's a great little metric for how efficient you are.
But this is where things get really interesting. LTV, or Customer Lifetime Value. This metric zooms all the way out. It doesn't care about one sale. It's trying to predict the total amount of money a single customer will spend with you over their entire life as a customer. It's a total game changer because it forces you to think long-term.
So why is this LTV thing so important? Well, because that quick and dirty ROAS number can fool you. You might run an ad that looks like a dud in the short term, but maybe it brings in customers who stick around for years. Looking at things through the lens of LTV gives you a much, much truer picture of what's actually working.
Which brings us to what some people call the golden ratio of e-commerce. This is the one number that perfectly connects the cost of getting a customer with the value they bring you over time. Get this right, and you've got a recipe for sustainable growth.
It's the LTV to CAC ratio. You're literally just comparing the lifetime value of a customer to what it costs to get them in the door. Is this person going to be worth more than what I paid to find them? This one little ratio is basically a health check for your entire business model.
So what's the magic number? What should you be aiming for? Well, for most healthy businesses, the gold standard is 3-to-1.
Let's break that down real quick. If your ratio is 1-to-1, you're in trouble. You're basically spending $1 just to make $1 back, which means you're actually losing money after you pay for the product and everything else. 3 to 1? That's the sweet spot. You're healthy, you're growing. But what if you're at 5 to 1 or even higher? That sounds great, but it probably means you're being too timid. You could be spending more on marketing and growing even faster.
Okay, deep breath. We've been in the weeds with Ethiopian universities, and we've been flying high with e-commerce strategy. Now it's time to bring these two completely different worlds crashing together.
And this right here, this is the whole story. The very things that were roadblocks in Ethiopia, a lack of data policy, a poor organizational culture, those are the exact same things that an e-commerce company relies on to do something sophisticated like calculating an LTV-CAC ratio. You see the connection?
So here's the bottom line. You simply cannot have the cool, high-level execution without first doing the hard, often boring work of building the foundation. You can't calculate a meaningful LTV-CAC ratio if you don't even have a basic policy for how to manage your data. The foundation makes the execution possible.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. We're all so obsessed with big data and AI and all the flashy stuff. But maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing. Maybe the real question we should be asking ourselves is much simpler. Are we putting in the hard work to build the culture and the systems we need to actually use our data wisely?